Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I have to tell you, as of this broadcast, I am feeling absolutely fantastic. Not only just because I'm feeling good, I've shared with you folks that I have been going through, as we all are, my own challenges, and I basically tell myself that these challenges, they're temporary, and that in addition to being temporary, I have no expectations as to the outcome, how I will meet these challenges, and what will be my life after. And I have to tell you that that is not easy to do. And I'm not saying that I'm 100% through it, but I would say 95 to 97% through the challenge. And I just cannot tell you the miracles that I have experienced in just the last week to 10 days since this conversation with my very special guest. They're all special. Juan Lee is here on the program. He's an author. He's a speaker. He's a teacher on the powerful principle of love. And Juan, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the program.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Richard. I enjoyed that intro there. I appreciate it. Oh boy,
Well,
your story is encouraging enough for me.
well, and I won't get into my story much more than to say that it has to do with this concept that we're going to talk about today. And that concept, and it is more than just a concept, don't get me wrong, folks, of love. Love. And love made simple. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, all right? It really doesn't. It is simple. Now, here's the kicker for me, Juan. And of course, just letting the folks know that Juan Lee is the author of A Guide to Inner Peace, Contentment, and Success. And I can actually attest to that fact because of some of the changes that have taken place just in this past week. But the thing that comes to mind I want to start with, Juan, has to do with there are different kinds of love, but one of the things I'd like to talk about to start with is unconditional love. And when one is going through a challenging time with someone else, in their heart, they care deeply about this person. They want what's best for this person, but they also know they can't do it for this person. So they're going to have no expectations on whether or not this person is going to realize the path that they're going down and the consequences thereof. Being responsible, and then the people on the outside who love them dearly, like a parent who has an addicted child, regardless of age, doesn't want to give up on them, and at the same time says, you know what, I've done all I can do. Now it's up to them. They have to make what would for them be hard choices. Unconditional love seems to me to be something that is very difficult for some people because they hold on to resentments, they keep score, and I know that especially in relationships, sometimes the intimate relationships, marriages, boyfriend, girlfriend, and so forth, one of the partners is keeping score. Well, 10 years ago you did this, and 5 years ago you did this. Matter of fact, I was at my parents' house at Christmas time. They celebrated their 65th. They'll celebrate 66 years together, married in June. My father's 90, mother 87. And I wanted to ask my mother if there's anything that she still has to forgive my father for something he did way back when. I never did ask her that, but I certainly could call her and find out. I would be very interested to know if she still holds any resentment toward him for whatever. And I also have to tell you, I never saw them fight. They may have had spirited conversations, But I never saw it as fighting. So talk to me about this concept of simple love, as is your book, Love Made Simple, and unconditional love.
I'm going to start first by qualifying this love.
Okay.
I think a lot of times um, we we preface love by saying unqualified or what did you just say?
Unconditional.
Unconditional.
Yeah.
And that's literally a contradiction of what love is.
Ah, okay.
If there's conditions to it, it's not love. Okay?
Okay, gotcha.
Because love has no conditions. Okay? See, from that just perspective, we begin to look at it totally different, because we put unconditional love at this hierarchy, this a better than, instead of what it really is, and allows for us a margin of, you know, a way out, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I can love you, but I ain't unconditionally loving you. It's that addition part that we struggle with, and that really makes it very difficult to really exercise this simple love that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first thing that it does is it makes it very clear. It's very clear, and it's just that simple, is that there aren't any conditions to it.
Now, can I say to this person that I love you unconditionally. However, I don't like it when you do this. Is that
Okay.
still unconditional love?
Yeah, but see, what you've done is you've given them power, though.
Okay.
You've given them power when you say that. And love doesn't give power away. It gives self away, but it doesn't give power away. See, the power of love is you always maintain the power. Okay? When you give it, see, when you say I love you, but you begin to give away the power.
Okay.
Okay? This power, this love, is the ability to act on behalf of another. And when you say but, you take away that power to act on behalf of that person.
Okay.
And that doesn't indicate this love as being unconditional, that love without conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part that we struggle with, in not understanding how we are to engage this thing. Because see, we possess the love. Nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
We have it. Okay. Now, you're engaging it at a point where we're assuming that you have it. Okay. Because the first thing that love does is it teaches you how to love yourself. Because before you can give yourself, you've got to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we struggle with loving somebody or attempting to love someone when we first haven't loved ourselves. That's where we begin to go down the rabbit hole, and things begin to get real squirrely.
Yeah.
Because we're giving something that we don't have, we don't possess, and then we giving it, and then we actually give the power away. When in actuality, that's the part that we're supposed to sustain. We give ourselves, but we retain the power to give ourselves.
We're talking with Juan Lee. We're talking about his book, Love Made Simple, here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you for staying with us here on the program as we continue talking with our very special guest, Juan Lee, author of the book, Love Made Simple. And it is a guide to inner peace, contentment, and success. And of course, we can certainly discuss each one of these elements, because each one of them is extremely important in our lives. I will tell you one that through therapy that I have been through officially and unofficially throughout my life, including this program. This program is my therapy. I want you to know that. And I love it. because I learn a lot about myself. I learn a lot about the guest. I learn a lot about, what it is that we all want, that kind of thing. And one of the things that I learned in therapy was just exactly what you said. And one of my therapists is constantly asking me, how are you doing? And how are you taking good care of you? And it goes to that point you made about self-love. Let's talk about that and the inner peace, because we talk on this program about participating in the Decade of Perfect Vision, where we encourage people to go within, sit quietly in that peaceful, calm place. You could even call it your closet if you want. Christians would refer to it from the Bible as a prayer closet. And listen to that still small voice that is going to encourage you. It's going to enlighten you. It's going to educate you. It's going to guide you. The question is, are you going to follow the promptings? That's a whole nother subject. But let's talk about this process of evaluating for self. Do I love myself? Is there a litmus test that I can take? Any gauges that I can look at? What are the signs that show that I love myself and I love myself in the appropriate way? Because there are those who love themselves all the way to the level of narcissism. So let's not go to narcissism, we'll talk about the balance and all of that, but how do we come to that understanding? I do love myself.
Here's where the work begins.
Uh-oh.
Here's where, like, we're just gonna keep it really, really, we're gonna keep it real.
There you go.
This is where the work begins, and there's no way around it. The sooner, the better, because before we can begin to develop this ability to be able to love, the longer it takes for us to do the hard work, and that hard work is basically finding out who you are, where you've come from in the sense of where you reside. You've got to be able to do that work, and that work starts with you. You've got to begin to do some introspection. The sooner the better, because we are building up something day by day that's created who we are today.
Yes.
And as a result of it, it has determined what, who, where, what, how we do whatever we do. And to be able to understand that, and everything that we're talking about is predicated on understanding this experience called life. Okay? So many of us don't understand this experience called life, because this experience is something that is being duplicated over and over again using components and parts called humans. And we have to realize that and understand that we have to hook or connect to this reoccurring system called life to be able to be productive in it and understand what its value is, that it's something bigger than ourselves. And when we take on that understanding and understand that, hell, we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, and what that is humanity. We are bigger. We are just a part of something bigger than ourselves called humanity. It was here before we got here. It's present now, and it will be here after we are here, if only we're able to protect it and preserve it. we have a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we get that and the way that we assist in that process is that we have the ability to define and understand who we are and how we exist into that bigger system. We can't be a byproduct. We can't be a happenstance. We can't be the part that, oh, by the way, we have a specific purpose in that system called, or that system about humanity, concerning humanity, that we all have to realize we're important to it. Then we begin to realize that we have something to do in finding out who we are and how we fit into that system, because it's bigger than we are. It's bigger than just one of us, any one of us. That's the story that we have to start from before we can begin to, because we're just not running down some aimless hallway or something.
Right.
There is a definite direction and a definite end result, or a definite system that we are part of that we have to recognize.
I have to tell you that over the years, and I have been on what I called at the age of 17, I have been on what I call my search. And I have read a lot of books. And when I look back and I think about all the books I've read, I'm going, really? I read all of those? Wow. But most importantly, what was so fascinating were some of the books that I read and some of the people that I listened to back in my teens and 20s that I was introduced to through my mother and father. One in particular, they called him the Love Doctor, Dr. Leo Buscaglia. I recorded for private use for myself and my wife at the time, who is totally blind. I recorded Gerald Jampolsky's "Love is Letting Go of Fear," and of course read the Bible a number of times. Read the different types of love that there are. Which one of the Greek words for love are we talking about here from, I don't want to say from a biblical perspective, but from the definitions that we find in the Bible? You know, there's eros and there's, and I can't even remember them all.
Agape.
Agape, that's what we're talking about. And of course, here in California, we have a church down in Los Angeles run by Michael Beckwith, I believe it is, Agape Church. And I think that that's maybe a direction that we might want to go here in just a couple of moments as we continue. Talking with Juan Lee, he is the author of the book, Love Made Simple. We hope that you'll get a copy. Go to his website as well. Your website that we want to send people to, and we will be linked to as well, because we want people to research and investigate as well. I mean, what's the point of doing any of this if nobody can find the info? So you want to go to Juan Lee Author, the author, JuanLeeTheAuthor.com. That's JuanLeeTheAuthor.com. And we will be linked, of course, as I've mentioned on all of our programs, we'll be linked to your website as well, and providing people with information in regards to the work that you are doing as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and talking about love. Here we are in the month of February. If that's when you're listening to this program, they refer to it as the month of love. And then there are those cynics who say, oh, this is hogwash. This was created by the greeting card companies, the chocolate manufacturers, just to make money. That's all it's about. And I have to say that I have gotten cynical sometimes, certain years, because it's like, well, wait a minute. Now I have to go so far out of, I want to say, my way to show the person that I love her even more, as if I'm not showing that every day of the year in everything that I do with and for her. And now I have to up the ante? And it just seems like there's something wrong with that in one sense. I also know too, there are birthdays, there are anniversaries, the holidays, and those kinds of things. And personally, I've gotten a little jaded about all of those because it always seems like the focal point is the bottom line. They like to say, oh no, this is about family. This is about connecting and loving your family and working through those challenges that maybe your dysfunctional family had or has. I can honestly say, Juan, and I don't know about you, but I absolutely love going to Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner with my family. We have never been estranged. I'm not saying it's a Norman Rockwell painting, mind you. And though for those of you who don't know who Norman Rockwell is, Google it. I'm not saying that our family necessarily was a Norman Rockwell painting, but what I will say is that we're all very close. We support one another, whether they like our decision or not, they support us just the same, saying, hey, whatever you decide, we're here with you. We'll do what we can to help if we can. We'll give you advice. We'll just give you words of encouragement. Hang in there, kind of thing. When we are talking about agape love, let's just say around the Thanksgiving table, we've seen all of the movies and TV shows about the dysfunctional families and the potential food fights that could break out at the dining room table. But we don't see an awful lot. And of course, there's no real interest in, if there's no drama at the table, why would you put it on TV or on the big screen? But we don't live on the big screen. And I am very proud of my family and what each of them has accomplished, what we have accomplished as a family, the legacy my parents are my parents have great grandchildren. I'm a great uncle. It's kind of cool. Talk to us about the aspect of making love made simple, agape love made simple, in the dynamics of our day and time when people are still anxious and fearful, and we're still divided, and we're telling people what we believe. We don't know, but we believe based upon what we've been told that this is the truth or that's the truth or what have you. And families have been split asunder. Couples have been split asunder. Siblings won't talk to each other anymore. Over what? Nothing, in essence. Share with us, would you?
I want to start by complimenting you and your family for what you have demonstrated or been a very good example of what a family is intended to be.
And I will also quickly share with you, we lived in a 12 to 1400 square foot brick home in Phoenix, 3 bedrooms, 8 people, 1 bathroom. And we're all still alive.
There's nothing about close. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being close. That has things, makes it very intimate in that sense. You can understand why the compliment goes so well with your situation then, because you all were very close.
Yeah.
But that, what you have displayed or demonstrated or shared with me is what a family is intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's not that, we see what we see today.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be that thing that really sets the foundation of our society. And it's that thing in our community that if we have that knitting, that connection at home, and understand the value of what that connection has to society, it eliminates a lot of the struggles that we deal with in our society today. What it eliminates is things that otherwise you would not be able to recognize if you had not had it, that foundation. You can see the dysfunction in the world because it's foreign to you. It's foreign to you. It's like and that makes no sense though, but in a sense, it's like, it makes perfect sense because this is not how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is not how it's supposed to be. And it's the absence of love that is what is being demonstrated in our society today. It's that ability to be, intolerant. We're just intolerant.
Mm-hmm.
And you just made a good point about it. Everybody in that home that you had, a 1,200 square feet with one bathroom, oh, you were tolerant. You learned tolerance. You learned appreciation and discipline and each other's perspective in a place that you built at home, that foundation at home. But here in our society today, we don't have any tolerance. We don't have any patience. We don't have any expectance or value for anyone else.
Yeah.
And everybody is about self, what's in it for me?
Yeah. That's not self-love.
No, by no means. But it's the fact is that we need more homes like yours that would present itself to the society as an example to be able to say, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. You have value. I understand where you're coming from. I can see your perspective, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. I can appreciate it's being your perspective.
Yeah.
That's the things that we don't see in any area in our society today.
Now, you've used a word that I am starting to have a problem with. I would like to use a different word other than this word, and I think I know what word to replace it with, because I'm hearing constantly when we talk about these divisions, regardless of whatever it is that's dividing us, a race, creed, color, sexual orientation, political orientation, religion, economic status, and the word is tolerance. And to me, this is just me,
Mm-hmm.
that word carries with it a certain level of aggressiveness and agitation, meaning, Juan Lee, your ideas, I will tolerate them. Okay? In other words, I am passing judgment, okay, and I'll tolerate you in the room, okay? I'll tolerate you even though you wear glasses, even though you're wearing a brown jacket, even though your skin is your black skin, or you're only 5'7", and everyone in this room is supposed to be 6 feet, and we'll tolerate you. In other words, we'll put up with you in spite of your inferiority aspects. And I think I don't want to be tolerant. I want of the bullies that I had in school. I want to understand. I want to walk a mile in their shoes, as it were, so that I'm no longer tolerating them. Whether I agree with them or not is not relevant, but I can at least say, in the truest sense of humanity and humility, I love you. You are a fellow human being. You have every right to be here just as I do, almost like Desiderata. You have a right to be here, whether it is clear to you, the earth, the universe is unfolding as it should. And it seems like that we need to go to that next step. I don't want to be tolerant. I want to be understanding.
I hear you 100%. Tolerance is a step.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's a step, because where tolerance goes to is conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get to understanding without a conversation. If I can't have, now, if there's a little nuance here, because you said tolerate. Tolerance is just is acknowledgement. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm tolerating you. I'm saying I'm acknowledging you, okay, with no understanding, with absolutely no understanding. I'm acknowledging you, okay? Now, from that point, I want to conversate with you. I want to conversate with you because now it's in the conversation that we can gain understanding. But see, if I can't see, I have to accept the fact that you have a different perspective than I have. See, excuse me, without accepting that, I have no value for wanting to have a conversation with you because I can't see anything other than from my perspective. And all tolerance is a step. It's that step that if we don't get anywhere else at one point, I've got to say, I've got to be tolerant of the fact that I don't understand you. I don't understand your perspective. But if I don't tolerate, if I don't have a tolerance for your existence, we won't get to a conversation.
Yeah.
We won't get there. I've got to identify, I have to find somewhere. And if there's another word, I'm with you. If there's another word that would present another perspective, you know,
Yeah.
then you and I can begin to visualize that every person has a different perspective. And what would it take for me to acknowledge that?
Yeah. Now, I think that this goes hand in hand with self-knowledge, self-love, and so forth, in that we can also get to a place where I recognize that Juan Lee has different perspectives than I, and that I am not going to place any judgment on the differences. Whereas, some people say, well, yeah, we've got differences. And it's okay if you're wrong, Juan. It really is. It's okay that you're wrong. That's one of the reasons why I could never buy into some of the answers that I got from the ministers and pastors at the Christian station I worked for back in the 80s and early 90s during a great educational period in my life, I have to tell you. Their answers made no sense to me, and so I kept searching, and that's why even to this day I'm still searching. It's just new questions. I want to let you know, folks, that we're talking with Juan Lee. He's the author of Love Made Simple. We really would love to have you go ahead and pick up a copy of this wonderful little book here, Love Made Simple. Juan Lee's the author, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and the conversation about love is one we need to have, especially... it's funny, Juan Lee, who's my guest, he's an author, he's a teacher of the powerful principle of love, that I hate using the term in these uncertain times or in these challenging times. There is not a moment in human history, recorded or otherwise, that hasn't been challenging, that hasn't been uncertain. That's just the way of life on this planet. So with that, what I'd like to ask you, Juan, is why do you even care about this subject? What in the world happened in your life, in your childhood, your adolescence, your early adulthood, and so forth, that said to you, you know what other people are doing just ain't working? And it's not a question of you're passing judgment on them saying you people are wrong. All you have to do is take a look at the kinds of relationships. Go in any grocery store, see a husband and wife, and if the husband is a really a dominant, a macho kind of guy, he's talking down to his wife a lot of times. You see that a lot. And I can't stand that. My father never did that. Matter of fact, it was brought to my attention by my wife, and she was kidding around about my insulting her. And I said, I'm going to tell you, and I did not know at the time that she was kidding around. I said, I have never insulted you. Never. Not to your face and not behind your back. My main point with the relationship that I'm in today is that we're a team. And we have had periods where we haven't worked too well together as a team. But for the most part, over more than 23 years of being together, we've accomplished a lot. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here with you today, because of that teamwork that I've got going on in my life. So let me go back to my question. Why? Why?
And you've opened up so many doors.
Uh-oh.
I myself am here because of a team that's similar to yours. I've been married almost be 25 years in August. And it's that teamwork that allows me to get here to do this with you. But a little bit about my story. Before we do that, though, I want to go back to something that you were talking about as it relates to the differences that we have in society. Love is something that looks for commonality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of the fact that we focus on the differences instead of the things that we have in common,
Mm-hmm.
which draws wedges between us.
Yeah.
And so my whole journey was about finding that thing that we all have in common, that we can't dispute, that we can all rally around, no matter where you come from, whatever continent you're from, whatever part of the earth you are on, that we all can rally around. And that commonality was humanity. No one of us can avoid that.
Yeah.
And that's what love does, is that it connects us through humanity, through love, that one thread that goes around the world that connects us all together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the tool or the thing that I was looking for and searching for as a 17-year-old graduating from high school, because I had no guidance, no clue as to how to survive. How does this thing work?
Yeah.
This thing called life. There's no guide to it. Everybody's just out here trying to figure it out for themselves. But yet, everybody is coming up short trying to figure it out. And that was what my journey was to find out what this experience called life was all about.
Yeah.
I graduated from high school with an undiagnosed learning disability.
Wow.
Went into the Air Force and found my identity in a system that demonstrated love. Willing to sacrifice and give my life for something that we all had in common, for the sake for someone else. That's the definition of love. To sacrifice, that's one of the big ones, is to be willing to act on behalf of another.
You know, it's an interesting example that you give of what it really means in terms of sacrificing self for others in that regard. And some of us are called to a greater sacrifice of self than others, and I understand that. And each one of us, we make those decisions. But it really comes down to choice too. I mean, that's what we talk about on this program, that we're giving people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. I remember it wasn't exactly my vow at my wedding ceremony to my present wife, but it's always been in my mind that I've been divorced once, and I have sworn that I will never, ever do that again. And if I do, it's over. No more relationships for me, at least not those kinds of relationships. So I am going to do everything that I can to make it work. I am not just going to give up. After 5 years, I'm not going to give up after 10. Now, granted, as has been told of me in therapy, Richard, you have to make sure you take care of you. Don't sacrifice yourself in that respect if there's something going on that isn't working for you. But that doesn't mean you throw in the towel. But you still have to take care of you, even while you are waiting and waiting and waiting. And again, as I've said, everything is temporary. But here's an interesting twist on the choices. You talked about, all the choices we've made have brought us to where we are today as individuals, who brought you and me together here on this program, especially. But I loved what one gentleman said during an interview about choices and where we will be in the future. And of course, the analogy being all the choices that you'll make from this point forward will determine where you'll be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But he put an interesting, fascinating twist. I hadn't even thought about it. He says, and all of the choices that you will make from this point forward are going to be based upon your perception of what you think the future will be. And I think about the energy, the time, and the money preppers put into preparing for what they think is the inevitable, the apocalypse, World War, Nuclear War III or whatever, and so on. Governments declaring martial law, on and on. I mean, just the list goes on. Natural disasters. I'm a guy who, someone even said this once. I'm a guy who's a believer in the glass half full. And this one guy says, I don't have a glass. I don't have a glass. I don't have to worry about it. But let's talk a little bit about that, because when I have faced these challenges of late, I acknowledged that there are some things that I need to do, and there are other things that need to be done. And I am not going to have any expectations on how it's going to turn out when we get to the end of the challenge. If it were a 400-meter race, before I've started, I have no expectations. It's not a question of winning or placing or even finishing. It's just, hey, this is the race I've got to run, so I'll run it to the best of my ability, but I have no expectations. Who knows? I may become exhausted at 300 meters. I may hit the turf passing out. That's how that would end. Or I'll crawl the rest of my way. Or I'll get some friends who will come along and they'll pick me up. I've seen this where one guy, he's like 10 feet from the finish line. He can't go any further. And some people come along and they lift him up and they carry him across the finish line. He didn't win, but he finished. What about that aspect of not only making choices, but also taking a look at the challenges and realizing, yes, it's all temporary, but giving up the expectations and allowing the universe to do what it does, listening to your still small voice, and so on and so forth?
I'm going to start with one of the attitudes for love as it relates to that ability to not give up, and that is tenacity. Love gives us the will to not give up. It doesn't give up. And so that's the portion of that part of your question as it relates to not giving up. Mm-hmm. It's just tenacity. It's just that ability to never give up. You don't quit. That's just not in you. Love doesn't quit. The other things that you were talking about as it relates to your choices, and I love the way you say this, is that everything is temporary. And I mean it, everything is just temporary. one of the things that I like to emphasize in trying to let people understand love is to first understand death. Death is something that we need to embrace before we can begin to appreciate this experience called life. Because what you basically just talked about was the end. You talk about, I'm going to get in the race, and I know you said the 400 meter, you defined the end. Okay. Life has a defined end.
Yes, it does.
And we've got to embrace it to be able to get on that journey of the race so that we can not have expectations, but understand that there is a finish line. Okay. And that finish line is temporary. That finish line is definitely there, but the experience, the race is temporary. And so we've got to change that mindset from it being short to being temporary. Because temporary is this very moment. It's temporary. You understand that right now could be the end. That's what temporary means. There is no defined. It means that it has a definite end to it, and it's temporary. And short, we have a tendency to look at short and go, it allows us to want to think that we can extend it. We can push past the finish line. No, you can't. And you've got to understand that, because it's in the race that you maximize that experience so that you can get the fulfillment of the race, of the finish line. The fulfillment comes in the finish line. It's not in the race, so to speak. It's in the finish line. And let me explain that. Because the race is an investment into that thing that is bigger than you and I, called humanity. And when we invest what it is that uniqueness that we have, that no one else can, into this thing called humanity, we begin to be fulfilled and reaching our potential. And that's what we're all about. That's what this journey is all about, is meeting our potential in gaining that fulfillment that others may be able to receive it into the future. It's investing into the future what it is that makes us unique in the present. And that's what we all here to accomplish together, collectively, because we need each other to maximize this thing called humanity into the future. You have something that's unique. I have something that's unique. I am looking for you to give me your portion to fill that void of humanity. And I have something that you need, looking for it to fill that void for humanity. That's what this is about. That gave me a clarity and an understanding as to what this experience called life was all about, and that it was bigger than me, and that I would be willing to invest something that is temporary into something that's greater than I am.
The way that you deliver these words, have you ever been, or are you a preacher?
Oh, no. I have had many occasions. I've taught Bible studies and things like that, but no, not an ordained preacher or minister. No.
And I don't know if anybody else picks up on this, and maybe it's just my imagination running away with me, but your voice and your cadence reminds me an awful lot, because I've heard him speak a number of times, of Ice-T. And I mean that as a compliment.
Well, I appreciate it. I took it as one. I have no one else to recognize. If you can identify with somebody who's popular in the public eye,
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Well, you also have received a number of merits during your time in the military, including the Air Force Commendation Medal, the Air Force Achievement Medallion or Medal, the Air Force. Obviously, you must have been in the Air Force, I'm guessing. Air
Yeah, yeah,
Force
yeah,
Good Conduct Medal. You behaved yourself, yes, and the
yeah,
Outstanding Unit Award. And you also
yeah.
found you also have new confidence in service, but not separating yourself from your disability, and that's your learning disability. Now, I was born and raised legally blind. And quite honestly, very early on, in spite of the bullying that I had to deal with back then, wearing thick glasses, carrying large print books and everything, as time went on, I began to realize that my visual impairment or legal blindness was not a limitation. It was a perceived limitation. A perceived limitation. If I perceive that it limits me, then it does. It's kind of like, what was it? Henry Ford who said this, made the comment, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the philosophy that you are sharing with us here today, and also your Christian faith, and utilizing these principles of love in your life. You obviously, as because I saw this happening, not just to me, but I saw this happening to other kids too in school as I was growing up. They'd get, belittled and put down and picked on and so forth because of their difference. And what was really interesting was if you were to take a look at the 5 or 6 or 7 bullies all gathered together, each one of them had their own differences as individuals. But somehow, for whatever reason, the group didn't see them. Somehow
Mhm.
they just didn't. And I find that rather interesting, I guess kind of a myopic view. But, you talked about value of self, getting to know self, self-love. And I came across something, and this has to do with the Christian philosophy, in regards to the sacrifice. Now, when I think about the Creator, having created me, I am one of His creation. I'm one of His children. Back at the time, shall we say, since there is no time with God, but anyway, according to the stories, a sacrifice was going to be needed somewhere down the road to save, quote unquote, humanity. Well, we view the Creator as Father. What parent, regardless of what their child is into, especially, let's say, an addiction, all right, or a self-destructive behavior, whatever it might be, the parent still loves the child. The parent still wants what's best for the child. The parent still sees the child as precious, right? So that tells me that we had value. We were priceless even before the sacrifice. I don't know if it's possible to be more valuable than priceless. After the sacrifice, you might say we were even more valuable, more worthy. You know what I'm saying? And it ties in with the passage in the Bible about be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And I've taken that to mean just be. Be. That's what God is. God just is. He isn't good, bad, right, wrong, white, black, etc., etc. God just is. So to be
Mhm.
perfect isn't to do everything correctly. It's just to be.
I think the good. I've never I appreciate the way of displaying that, demonstrating that, to sharing that, because I think that B is authentic. That ability to be your original or your authentic self. Okay, and that authentic self is playing a role into humanity in a way that only it can. And it takes you willing to sacrifice that authenticity into that bigger humanity, is what the demonstration is what that example is. It's a concept that you realize that if we're going to maintain, protect, and preserve humanity, that we've got to invest it into one another. But it has to be that authentic self with that ability to want, the desire to invest it into something bigger than yourself. It is that selflessness instead of selfishness is what that example is basically demonstrating. And we need to embrace it if we're going to preserve and protect humanity, because we can also destroy it. We can destroy humanity without it. So I think that my experience with religion was that it was that example, was an example like that made things confusing. Without clarity to be able to navigate. It left you with questions more so than answers.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was what I was seeking as a young man, looking for direction, when I was hoping that there would be some clarity through religion. It made it more confusing, that this experience called life. And so there are so many things that I have invested so many years in to trying to clarify that experience. And that's what this is, love. This is the results of it. Love is universal. It is not religious in sense that it's held by one religion. It is universal for all of humanity to be able to embrace, because we are all individuals with very unique abilities that collectively make up humanity and its existence.
Well, I will tell you, folks, that if you like overcoming fear with practical tools and pursuing self-improvement, then I think you're really going to enjoy Juan Lee's book. And that title is Love Made Simple, a guide to inner peace, contentment, and success, as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is always a pleasure to bring to you folks who they're trying to understand it. They don't have all of the answers any more than I do. And anything that I say, Juan, for example, it's only for me. It's mine. I just share it with the world. Okay? I don't put it on anybody at all. And I wouldn't want to do that. If you like it, if you want to incorporate bits and pieces, we lay out this giant smorgasbord table, Juan. We've been doing this for over 14 years. This table is huge. Okay, it's miles long with everything that each one of our guests has put forth, each dish, each main course, each entree, etc. We ask people to come to that table and partake. If it smells good, if it tastes good, if it looks good, have a little. But keep coming back to the table, because maybe as you move forward in your life, as you grow and you change, you might want to try something else that didn't smell so good a week ago, but today it smells pretty darn good. And I love this analogy. I don't know if I came up with this or someone else did, but this has to do with the aspects of self-esteem, self-worth. Okay? It's a metaphor. I'm a chocolate cake sitting on the counter in the kitchen. All right? And man, I'll tell you what, it is sweet, it is delicious, it is really a good cake. And people come into the room and they look at the cake, and Nah, I don't want chocolate cake today. All right, and they move on. When somebody else comes in, yeah, I'll take a slice, and they take a slice. Somebody else comes along and says, "Oh God, I can't stand chocolate. Oh, I'm moving on," and they move on. They can't take it. Well, the only thing that has not changed is the chocolate cake. And the chocolate cake is perfectly good. It's fresh. Matter of fact, it's still warm. They put it together real quickly and it's still, oh, you ever had warm cake? Oh my
Like
God,
it.
it's delicious. Just like warm bread right out of the oven. It's delicious. It smells great. It looks great. There's nothing wrong with the chocolate cake. And those people that didn't want any, for whatever reason, did not change the value of that chocolate cake, did not change the consistency, did not change the flavor, or the color, or the texture, or the temperature, or anything about it. We're a piece of chocolate cake, and we are perfect just as we are. And if people want to partake of me or you, hey, I know you feel this way. We would love it. We would love it. Whether or not you agree with us or not, hey, you know what? Let's just make race the dividing line here, okay? You may be black and I may be white, but hey, we're having a great conversation.
That we are.
And I love it. I miss, I'm not sure how this is going to change when we are actually able to meet in person, if we're able to do that kind of thing. And there are some things in the works that may help this. But I love having people in studio. The conversation across the console or at a table, there's nothing like it. The energy is so much different. And I thank you so much for giving us so much time here on the program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. This is wonderful.
And his name is Juan Lee, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and Juan Lee, I have three final questions that I like to ask my guests. I have taken to, I may end up throwing a sound effects or fanfare or something like that in here one of these days, but in the meantime, we go to the lightning round of the game show Tell Me Your Story, where we ask our guests three final questions. We ask all of our guests. You may have answered them to some degree during the program, but I like to ask them directly. Before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We stream live at those times at richarddugan.com, and our podcasts, the full interview, like if you were listening to one of those four broadcasts, you may or may not get the whole interview. So you're going to want to go listen to the whole interview by going to SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We are also on YouTube, where you can listen to and watch these interviews. So we hope you'll do that and subscribe. It'd be great if you'd subscribe. I'm not necessarily looking to pump up my numbers, no. But when you do subscribe, whether it's to the podcast or the video cast, you're notified every time I put up a new interview. So subscribe and you'll get notified and you'll be able to see more of these. We also encourage you to participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, where you go within. Go into that inner life of yours, into that place of calm and peace and contentment and tranquility, and listen to that still small voice and follow the promptings. And then we also ask that if you can support us financially, we would greatly appreciate it. We are using PayPal. It's for your security as well as ours. When you go to send, you're going to want to use the email address richard@richarddugan.com. That is associated with the account that we have set up to support this program, and all the proceeds go to support the broadcasts and the creation of all of the different things that we do, and all of the different ancillary aspects. So great. Thank you for those who have helped and for those who will help. You know what? We'll take energetic support due. Pray for us. Send us good energy. We would really appreciate it. We'll take that and use it as well for the betterment of this program, in light of the betterment of our world. And with that, we now go to the lightning round of Tell Me Your Story with our 3 final questions for our special guest, who's the author of Love Made Simple. First of those 3 questions is, who is Juan Lee?
Wow. Who is Juan Lee? I'm a transformational speaker, thought leader, author, and also currently the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Clear Journey, where we provide financial literacy and attitudes for success for teenagers and young adults who wants to share the applications of the practical applications of love to the world.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you are doing now?
I want people to reimagine love differently. I want us to be able to understand that love is what we do, not what we say, but what we do. It's an action word that we would be able to put it into place on behalf of another, so that we all can begin to come together and to begin to realize humanity as something for us all.
And finally, what is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose is to make a difference, to invest into humanity and that it will live on into eternity.
Well, once again, Juan Lee, I want to thank you so much for your insights, your knowledge, your awareness, your understanding, not only of self, but this concept of love that we're all every day learning more and more about as we use it in our day-to-day lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I thank you for listening and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And by the way, when you make those choices, think about the kind of future you want. And if you're an optimist or you want to be an optimist, then think of the future optimistically. Because everything, as we've already said, that Juan has said it, I've said it many times, everything is temporary. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to love.